Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and I'm bringing you guys my quarterfinal team builder and battle for BBL season number 2. We are going up against JB Westside and his Arkansas Razorwinds. Make sure you go check him out down in the description below. This is actually a rematch of our week 1 game for BBL. That was a pretty fun match. I think we had a 4-0 or 5-0 victory. I think it was 4-0, and then Arceus Dark ended up getting 5 kills. A lot has changed between then and now. JP has modified his team quite a bit. In the matchup I didn't love to begin with, and now it's definitely even tougher. So let's quickly look at JP's roster, go into the team, and then hop on over into the battle. So he has now Mega Beedrill, Alolan Persian, Terrakion, Palkia, Uxie, Rotom Heat, Mamoswine, Florges, Whaleren, Celesteela, and Quilladin. So he definitely did not have the Beedrill before. I think that's the main thing that's new. And he also had a Terrakion, that's right. He did not have the Terrakion before. He had Mega Gallade as his fighting type before. So he swapped that up for Terrakion and then used his Mega Slot to add the Beedrill. So I think JB learned quite a bit from the first match. He did not bring a Dark Resist versus my team, which is how Sub-Calm Mind Arceus was able to do so well. I was able to set up a substitute on Uxie as it tried to go for a T-Wave, and then he had U-Turn to hit me, but it was not able to do enough damage to even break the sub on my Arceus. So from there, it was pretty much a clean sweep, but I'm not expecting it to be so easy this time. He has a pretty much guaranteed way to revenge kill me in Beedrill. I don't even think like a very physically defensive set can take a U-Turn very well from Beedrill. He has potentially a Scarf Terrakion that he could use to take out Arceus, but I think it's a little bit redundant with the Beedrill there. But even so, my team is just generally weak to fighting. My Terrakion counter this match is a Medicham, which is hilarious. But yeah, the number one threat overall is definitely the Palkia. He brought just a Scarf set in the week 1 matchup versus me, but I don't think that is the most effective set. I think he sort of felt pressured to run that as a way of dealing with Arceus. But now that he has the Beedrill and the Terrakion, that allows for just sort of more straight up offensive sets to work. I'm mostly scared of Z move sets. I think like a Fightinium Z set makes a ton of sense just to hit Arceus as hard as possible. And then I just have dual stab coverage plus T-Bolt to hit my water types. Yeah, I just don't switch into Arceus at all. Or not Arceus, Palkia at all. So it's very spooky. I guess one of the things I could have used to counter it is my Garchomp, but Garchomp has a pretty poor matchup. Even more poor than the first time we played. Because, I don't know. I brought it before for with a Scarf on it just to like guaranteed outspeed Palkia and things like that. But like Celesteela walls it really hard. Mamoswine always revenge kills it. Florges can take one. Rotom, Uxie can all take one. So I'm sort of left without one of my best revenge killers for Palkia. And it also is it's not weak to really any of my priority. Like I've got Double Bullet Punch, I've got Aqua Jet on 2 Mons, I've got Ice Shard. It's just not weak to any of those things. So it's definitely a big issue for my team overall. So I feel like I had to go a little creative here in order to catch him off guard and try and get a cheap win. That's honestly how I feel the matchup has devolved from the week 1 that we had versus him. So enough of my rambling, let's just go into the team. So I've got a pretty standard looking Heat Trance set for me, Shuca Berry with rocks, and then I'm packing both Lava Plume and Overheat. So Lava Plume is just potentially spammable versus his team to try and catch a burn on something. His potential switch-ins to this are definitely Rotom and Palkia. So it'd be nice to hit either of those with a Toxic if we don't want to try and go for Lava Plume. Because obviously we can't burn Rotom, and then Palkia just doesn't take very much from Lava Plume in general. And then Overheat is a very safe nuke button for Celesteela. So we can even to like a max Spadef Celesteela, we can kill that thing in one shot with Overheat. We have enough speed on this for a max speed Celesteela. And then we should not be taking too much damage from Earthquake on Celesteela. I don't think we take an EQ very well from Mamoswine, so I'm not using this to counter Mamoswine. It ended up being pretty nice in the first match. I had a fast Heat Tran which outsped his Adamant Mamoswine. He had like a lure set on his Mamoswine to catch my Scizor, but I did not end up bringing Scizor in that matchup. I am bringing it now with the Fizdef set, of course, so I'm hoping that he either leaves Mamoswine at home for some godforsaken reason, or he does not have the Bluckberry to go with Natural Gift on that thing. But if it didn't make sense before, it definitely makes sense now that now that the Beedrill is on the team. This is a pretty hard counter to most variants of Beedrill. If he wants to just go for U-turn chip, that's fine. I can hit it up with Rocky Helmet and probably do more damage to it than it could do to me. So that's pretty nice. So just Roost Toxic, BP is there for chip damage on things like Terrakion, and just anything else that can potentially outspeed me. And then U-turn obviously for momentum. Put just a tiny bit of speed on this thing because I always like to put a little bit of speed on my walls. But yeah, so hopefully I can use this to switch into Mamoswine relatively well, like throw off the Bullet Punch versus that do decent damage. Hit Beedrill, hit Terrakion, etc. So that's sort of like my defensive backbone to try and take care of some of the really major threats on the team, excluding Palkia, of course. Neither of these Pokemon deal with Palkia at all. Where I have a pretty cheeky set is with this Mega Medicham here. So we have Recover, Baton Pass, Work Up, Drain Punch. So this it's not really meant to win on its own. What I really want to do is use Work Up and Baton Pass into one of my 3 Pokemon back here. It could potentially win on its own if Uxie somehow gets eliminated, or if Florges somehow gets eliminated. It could potentially win with just Work Up, Recover, and Drain Punch. But mainly this is actually a really good switch into Terrakion, because it resists the dual stabs of Terrakion. And Terrakion's not a Z-move user, so it can't just like blow me back quite as well. He'd have to be running something like Life Orb in order to really blow me back, which I don't think is necessarily a great idea. But yeah, it can switch into that thing, go for Recover, go for Work Up with Baton Pass, and potentially give some boosts to members of my team that are problematic for him. So I'm hoping that I can use it to my advantage throughout the match. I have enough speed on here. It seems like a little bit of a... It's just for max speed Mamo. And I think like the EV spread he ran on Palkia before is also outsped by this Medicham if he chooses to bring that again. Like if I were him, I would just run max speed to guaranteed speed tie with Medicham. But yeah, I'm just running enough for Mamo so that way I can hit that thing with the Drain Punch and get all my recovery back if I need. So one of the things I want to pass into is Arceus Dark here. So I just have 3 attacks Recover on this Pokemon with a pretty Spadef looking spread. So that allows me to be a relatively good switch into Palkia, just because like I do have Primarina, but that's like so obvious, like he's definitely going to be predicting that. So I don't want to, that's what I used last time and he still predicted it. So I didn't want to use something that was quite so obvious. And Arceus is bulky enough to live most non-Life Orb variants of Palkia, like to take hits from it. So that's pretty nice. And then just with this coverage in general, he doesn't have a very good way of dealing with this thing when it's at +1/+1. Because Judgment hits almost everything on the team. It doesn't hit Terrakion or Florges, but we do have Iron Head to hit both of those things. We are outsped, of course, by Beedrill, but we have extreme speed to do damage to that. We do at least 75% if we are at +1. If we're at +2, we one-shot it. And the other thing is Persian, but Persian just doesn't really threaten Arceus all that much. I can throw off a Judgment and then go into extreme speed and do quite a bit to it that way. That's totally fine with me. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking with my Arceus. Like, use it as a bulky mon for Palkia, but it can also apply a ton of offensive pressure if it gets a workup passed into it. Next, we have a Scarf Primarina. So Primarina is definitely a problem for his team, just because it's like it doesn't have switch-ins in general on any team. It's a little bit like less powerful without the choice specs, obviously, but that's why we have the workup. We can potentially pass into that and get very spammable Hydro Pumps or Moonblast potentially on his team, depending on what sort of sets he brings. We have enough speed on here to outspeed Max Beetle and Persian. We unfortunately don't outspeed the likes of Beedrill, but that's okay as long as I have Scizor around, and even to a lesser extent Quillfish. Beedrill's not quite as much of a problem, I don't think. But yeah, having the Scarf on here in general is just important to me, so that way I have something to take care of Palkia. Like I said, he was Scarf Palkia before, but I'm not expecting him to be Scarf again. because I think it's a waste of its potential. So I think Primarina can take advantage of that, you know, and throw off Moonblast versus it and be able to revenge kill it almost every time. We put just a tiny bit of Spadef in here so that way we could live Life Orb T-Bolt if we really needed to from Palkia. But again, I don't want to use this thing as a switch in to it unless I'm predicting very confidently a Water type or a Dragon type move. If I'm expecting an Electric type move, I'd much rather go into Arceus. And then last but not least, as my final recipient of workups from Medicham is Qwilfish. And I actually like this set quite a bit because besides Palkia, like, not much really can deal with this. If it gets to +1, I mean, like, so like +1 Aqua Jet does like over 50% to Beedrill. It like nearly one-shots Terrakion. Liquidation plus Poison Jab hits a lot of his walls very hard. I guess the only thing that doesn't mind Qwilfish so much is Celesteela. I don't know if I'm expecting Fizzdaf or Spadef Celesteela more. That's something I'll have to take care of before Qwilfish can do work. But yeah, Qwilfish, besides Palkia and Celesteela, can actually do quite a bit of damage to his team. Just like Poison Jab hitting Florges, Liquidation to hit Uxie and things like that. It actually does quite a bit of damage. So pretty happy with that set. Yeah, and like Mamoswine, this thing outspeeds Mamoswine. So I think that this one could surprise him the most of anything. So we just need to get rid of Palkia and Celesteela, and then I think +1 Qwilfish really does win. So let's see if we can make that happen and skip on over to the battle where, as you can see, JB has brought his Palkia, Terrakion, Beedrill, Florges, Celesteela, and Uxie. So definitely pleased not to see the Mamoswine, just because I thought that was a very major threat. You know, he wanted to prioritize a lot of bulky things on the team, as for sure, as you can see. Like, that's probably a Spadef Florges as a way of dealing with Arceus. And it's also a pretty good check to non-Specs Primarina, even to Specs Primarina. I'm not 100% sure that I can 3-8 KO like a max Spadef Florges. So it makes a lot of sense on his end to see that. Uxie is again there as his Medicham counter. Celesteela, he didn't bring it the first time actually, but it is definitely a spooky Mon in this matchup because they don't have amazing switch-ins to it. And I only brought one Pokemon to hit it with Stab super effective coverage. I didn't bring my Ampharos, which makes it very hard to deal with. I don't think I have any other super effective coverage period for it on my team besides Heatran. So it's definitely problematic in this matchup. I may have under-prepped for it, but that's besides the point. And I promise I'm not foreshadowing anything. And then the Terrakion, the Beedrill, and the Palkia all make sense as his main offensive win conditions. I don't know what sort of Terrakion it's going to be. I'm not really expecting a Scarf set. So it could be like SD or something like that. Just Bandit in general, of course, would be really hard to deal with because it 2-hit KOs everything, period. Except maybe Medicham. I guess Medicham can take 2 like CCs if it needs. So yeah. I am going to lead with Scizor just because it leads well versus pretty much anything except Palkia. Versus like Celesteela, I could just U-turn out into Heatran if I need. Hopefully he's not like fast and with Flamethrower or something like that. But Uxie doesn't appreciate U-turn. Terrakion, Beedrill, and Florges all don't appreciate Bullet Punch. So it seems like a pretty good overall lead. With that, let's click play and hop on into this battle. So good luck, JB. We are hoping to obviously catch the win here. If we can do that, we'll advance to semis and potentially into finals, where I would expect to see Gypsy King. I think that's where he will end up. But we have to get through this first match first if we want to have our rematch with Gypsy. So I do lead my Scizor as he leads Palkia, which is sort of worst case scenario for me. He must have just looked at my team and realized that Palkia could like really run through it. So I am going to go into my designated Palkia response, which is my Darcius, and he does go for the T-Bolt right away. So we learned from the first match that he definitely likes to play aggressive. So he's showing that here already on the first turn. And as I take that T-Bolt, I am going to double into the Primarina as he throws off the Spatial Rend. We're going to be immune to that. And so I'm going to throw off a Moonblast here because it's not completely free versus his team, but it's pretty free. He does go into the Celesteela though, so it's going to be good for us to find out what sort of set this thing is, and it takes very little from that Moonblast. So we are going to find out that it's pretty bulky. Maybe Spadef, hard to say, just because I don't have one of those nice little things to put the HP like percentages on there, like those bars that people use on the live battles. I don't have one of those. So anyway, he makes a really nice play here, going for EQ on my Heatran switch-in, just because my Heatran switch-in was very obvious. But because of how much Celesteela does to my team, I figure that he's going to preserve it here. I do have Lava Plume and Overheat, especially Overheat, to take this thing out. So I figure with a very safe switch into Palkia on the back, I can go for Toxic and potentially hit that thing. But he just makes the play of a lifetime and decides to stay in EQ and take out my Heatran. I mean, it's obviously a good play in the fact that it punished the play that I made. I can't. I don't know. I don't know that I can't really agree. I understand where he's coming from, but with Palkia being so free, I just would have gone into that instead. It does put me in a really bad position though, because now I have really no way to deal with this. I basically have to hope that he doesn't have Air Slash and any Spatak investment. And then my plan is to use Medicham, go for Workup, and then pass into Arceus to try and do a decent chunk of damage to this. So I do go for the Workup. He does show the Air Slash, which is not very good. But luckily, with my bulk investment, I am going to live. And he does reveal that he doesn't really have any special attack investment as well. So now I can Baton Pass into the Arceus Dark, which doesn't really... it still doesn't do that well versus Celesteela, but I just don't have a much better way of dealing with it, which stinks. But I'm going to pass it. He is going to go for Heavy Slam. It does stink that I'm a minus defense nature versus this thing, but I guess Arceus must be pretty heavy because it doesn't actually do that much damage. So that's pretty nice. So I'm going to throw off the Judgment, and it actually does a ton of damage. It does 60%. So this thing must be much more physically defensive invested than especially defense invested. Which is good to know. But basically, we're just going to have a little exchange here, trying to figure out, how do I take out this Celesteela while keeping my Arceus at the highest amount of health? Because I don't want to basically sack this thing to Celesteela if I can. I basically already sacked my Medicham to it. And obviously, I sacked my Heatran to it. And just to speak about that turn a little bit more, too, in hindsight, Stealth Rock would have been a better play, I think. Because at least if he did stay in and make the ballsy play, getting up my rocks would actually accomplish something, right? Toxic ended up doing absolutely nothing to Celesteela. So at least if I got my rocks up, I'd be able to chip down different members of his team. In this situation, for example, if I do manage to take out the Celesteela, he would bring in his Beedrill, and I'm at a +1 with Extreme Speed. My +1 Extreme Speed should take out his Beedrill. So it put me in a much more advantageous position if I had clicked Rocks instead of Toxic in that situation. So I do regret doing that, but I don't regret making the aggressive play trying to anticipate the Palkia switch in. I just Palkia comes in and gets a kill versus pretty much everything on my team. So I thought there was absolutely no reason that he would leave in the Celesteela. But JB, man, he's just thinking 3 turns ahead. I do respect the aggressive plays, don't get me wrong. I'm just basically salty that it didn't end up working out for me. So hope that makes sense. I don't mean any disrespect. I hope that doesn't come across that way. But anyway, yeah, we're still in this little stall fest between my Arceus and the Celesteela. Again, I'm just trying to figure out how can I keep this thing at the maximum amount of HP. He did get up a Leech Seed versus me, which is going to make him very healthy over the long term. Basically, I just have to suck it up and go for 2 Judgments in a row and take this thing out. And I think that I'm about coming to that point. I'm coming to terms with how these plays are going to turn out. So go for the Judgment there as he goes for a Heavy Slam. Yeah, I believe on the next turn I just say screw it. We're sacking off the Darcius, or not sacking off, but we're just gonna leave ourselves with as little HP as we can, and then basically forfeit this thing to Beedrill. I'll go for an E-Speed because that puts it in range of Aqua Jet from Quillfish, and that still accomplishes a decent bit. But I was really hoping to get more done with this Pokemon. I guess I could have I guess I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. He's finally let his Celesteela go down. The Beedrill does come in here, and so like I said, he is going to Mega Evolve, and I'm going to go E-Speed versus him. I could have gone into Scizor just to try and get the Rocky Helmet chip on this Pokemon, but he's just going to go for U-turn, and then if I go into Scizor, get the Rocky Helmet chip, he's just going to go into his Palkia, and his Palkia collects a kill. So it's not a great position for me. At least this way, like, he U-turns, he goes into something, and then I have the opportunity to react to him in whatever it is that he wants to do. So he does choose to go into the Florges. So here I actually decided to go into my Qwilfish because I can throw off a poison jab versus this thing, do quite a bit of damage. And nothing on the team besides, I guess, Terrakion really appreciates the poison jab. And I think it'd be kind of juiced to go into Terrakion anyway when I could just throw off like a Waterfall or a Liquidation or whatever. So he does go into his Palkia, and I'm going to throw off this Life Orb P jab. He couldn't know that I was max attack Life Orb with a P jab. I do get pretty lucky and land the crit on him, so that's going to play into the calculus in a little bit here. But I cannot... I can't stay in versus this thing. Qwilfish is one of my paths to victory now. I just basically need a little bit more chip damage on this Palkia, and Qwilfish actually has a really good shot to win. So I decided to sack off my Medicham, just because I'm not at an amount of HP where I can reasonably, where I can reasonably go for a workup and pass into anything. But I am just going to bring in my Primarina, throw off a Moonblast, hit this Florges. And it does okay damage. Again, like, just without the choice specs, Primarina doesn't hit quite as hard. I don't know if this thing is Spadef or not based on that damage. I find out after the match that this is actually a Fizdef of Florges, which I think makes a lot of sense as a Darcius response. But I am just going to switch into my Scizor, take that Moonblast. It's in line with the damage that a non-invested Florges should do, so it's not like a weird offensive set. And he is going to switch on out. I'm going to make the prediction and just click U-turn, I do believe. And yeah, so we're going to do a fairly decent amount of damage to this Uxie, like 45% or so, suggesting that it's Fizdef, which again makes a ton of sense for dealing with my Medicham. And I'm going to go into the Primarina here. I'm going to click Hydro Pump because it's the best move I have to hit this Uxie, potentially Florges. And also, like, I don't expect him to bring in Palkia on a Primarina. I think that would be pretty crazy. So, like, I feel relatively safe with the Hydro Pump. And he takes it as an opportunity to get up his Rocks. So, you know, Rocks is always important in these sorts of matches. I think that was a smart play on his part. I don't mind too terribly much. I'm definitely okay with it. But anyway, he does not go into the Florges. As I go for another Hydro Pump, it does like 40 to 45% or so, so pretty nice damage here. I think I make the switch here into my Scizor. Like, I'm beginning to fear that he knows I'm Scarf now, and he should have a pretty safe switch into Palkia. I also think that there's a decent chance that he just goes for Wish. So I decided to go into my Qwilfish. I guess Qwilfish doesn't really cover the Palkia play, but I don't really have anything to cover the Palkia play anyway. Because my Primarina, which is a decent response, is locked into Hydro Pump, and then my switch in, which is the Arceus Dark, is weakened. So anyway, he does go for the Wish, and the obvious thing that he wants to pass into is the Uxie. So I go for a Liquidation rather than a P-Jab, because that's my strongest move, and he lives on 1 HP, which is just devastating, because now he can keep this thing around. I don't know what the roll was, because I don't know exactly how much HP that he was at, but it was just kind of like a salt in the wound sort of thing. I am just going to switch on now into my Scizor, and he is going to click Knockoff. You know, nice play on his part. Like, the Life Orb on my Qwilfish is really important for getting as much power as possible. So now I'm in here with the Uxie. I think I make a little bit of a misplay here. A nice play on my end would have been to Roost to get up to as much HP as possible, but he instead goes for the foul play. I guess he's basically sacking this thing off to the Scizor, which makes sense. My Medicham is not around anymore, so it doesn't really need it. But yeah, if I had gone for the Roost, that would have put me in a much better position. So we're having a little bit of difficulties here, just making the right calculations. Like, first it was the play with the Celesteela, and then that play I think could potentially cost me quite a bit. I go for the Moonblast because it's definitely going to be able to kill this Uxie. It's probably going to be able to 2-hit KO potential Florges that comes in. It punishes a Palkia switch in. So I do kill that, and he does go into his Florges as I go for a Moonblast. I am expecting the Wish here, but I can't really switch into Scizor because I'm now too low. I won't survive a Moonblast after Rocks. He just stays and goes for the Moonblast, actually, which actually gives me a little bit of a chance to win, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as you see, he gets a special attack drop, which is just really, really unfortunate. Maybe it's justice for getting the crit onto the Palkia, but it sucks. It means I can no longer 2-hit KO this Florges with Moonblast like it was looking like I was going to be able to, since now that my special attack is reduced. And then, if he had... I guess maybe it wouldn't end up affecting things too much, but whereas before he would be forced to go into B-Drill to take care of my Primarina, now he has the opportunity to go into Terrakion, and this thing can survive a -1 Choice Scarf Moonblast. But I'm just going to throw it off. I don't know why he didn't try. I guess he couldn't pass into anything with his Florges. B-Drill was going to die to a Moonblast Palkia and Terrakion. I guess Terrakion wouldn't have died because, like I said, it was -1, but it wouldn't have been able to survive that, get the wish up, and then die to the next one. So he lets the Florges go down after going for the wish. I don't kill the Terrakion with Moonblast. He kills me with Stone Edge. I go for the BP versus the Scizor, and now he can go into his Palkia. And so this is where the rocks not being up is really unfortunate. Obviously, the match wouldn't have played out the same way exactly if I had gotten up rocks, because he might have gone into Florges at a different point to try and get off a defog to weaken my Florges. But I go for Bullet Punch, get this thing down to below 10%, and it's just not enough. My Bullet Punch does a decent chunk, but not enough to put it in range of this Aqua Jet from my Qwilfish. I think for a moment, and I have even if I crit, it's not going to be enough. My only chance is to hope that somehow I outspeed this Palkia and I click Poison Jab. If I do that, I can win the game, but he is, of course, going to be able to outspeed me. He throws off a T-Bolt and is going to hand me a 2-0 loss, knocking me out of the BBL playoffs. Great game to JB. I thought that he played pretty masterfully. He just really had the edge on me in terms of predictions and things like that. Catching the Heatran off guard earlier, that was just such a ballsy play. I don't think I could ever make that play in that situation, and I'm a pretty ballsy player, generally speaking. Not getting up the Stealth Rocks there was definitely a big mistake, so going for the Toxic instead. I still think it was I guess it was still the right play, because I just regret it, because that Palkia in that endgame situation would have been arranged to BP plus Aqua Jet had I gotten up those rocks, and it just switched in even once. But the only reason it was in that range of HP is because it took the P-Jab from the Qwilfish, and it ended up taking it as a crit. Was Toxic or Stealth Rock the better play? Not sure. Not having as much HP on my Scizor was definitely unfortunate. He still could have nuked it with Palkia. He was actually Waterium Z, so I don't know if he had water, a Hydro Pump or Surf or whatever he had, but I don't think there's any situation where my Scizor survives Palkia, even if I'm at 100%, if he goes for the Hydro Vortex versus me. The special attack drop was definitely unfortunate, but again, I don't think it really mattered that much, because he would have then gone. I guess I had a path to victory if he had gone into B-Drill, and then I had my Primarina in. If I went into Scizor as he goes for P-Jab, I'm in a better position, because then I can BP and potentially take out Palkia in 2 hits. I can take out the Terrakion in 2 hits, and then I obviously kill the B-Drill. So it would come down to a little bit of a 50-50 on whether he goes for the Poison Jab or the U-Turn. If he goes for the U-Turn, then pretty much he wins the game. I guess it was not, even that, it's not guaranteed, because it depends on whether I can get damage on Palkia or not. If I can get damage on Palkia, then Qwilfish can win the game. But yeah, it was just unfortunate, because I think that it really set him up to win. There was pretty much no way. He came in with a Terrakion, got the kill on Primarina. I guess if he missed Edge, that would have worked too. But that didn't happen. But with that, once the Terrakion got the kill on the Primarina, it was pretty much hook, line, and sinker. He sacks it off to the Scizor, and then Palkia always can clean up my team at that point. So I don't know how I feel about this game. I'm not that mad about how I played. I think there's 1 or 2 mistakes that I made. But otherwise, like, I just think it was a hard matchup to overcome. And then, like, you go against someone like JB who played as well as he did in terms of his predictions and aggressive plays and things like that. It was just sort of a hard thing to overcome. So I'm definitely gonna be pulling for him to go on forward in playoffs. Definitely deserves it. There's a bunch of tough competition left. He's gonna be going up. This is a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want to know the results of the other matches, don't listen to this. But he is going up against Panther in the next week. Panther won his game. And then I believe Gypsy is going up against Blue in the other semifinal matchup. So we'll see how that one shakes out. We'll see if JB can advance to finals to face either Gypsy or Blue. So yeah, that's gonna do it for our BBL season. We had a ton of fun. I'm not gonna lie, like it was just like the using Darcius. Yes, it was really broken. I've never used anything broken like that, and like that was like half the reason that the season was so fun. But it was also just really well organized, really well run. Big shout outs to AA Ron 2420 for organizing everything and keeping all of the battles scheduled, providing the graphics, providing all these video recordings for me. It was a really great experience overall. Had a good time playing with everybody in the league. Everyone's a good sport. Everyone just wants to have some fun games to upload to their YouTube channels. No one was too salty about anything, about getting demolished by potential Arceus Dark Calm Mind sweeps. That happened to at least 3 opponents that Arceus got like 4+ kills in a game, so that was wild. I don't know if I'm going to come back for Season 3. I just don't think the timing of it's going to work out that perfectly with UBL. And I'm now involved in another project that hasn't been announced yet that's going to occupy a lot of my time this summer. I think BBL starts in July for Season 3. So yeah, I just have a feeling I'm going to be a little too busy to come back for that season. I haven't decided yet for sure, though, so Aaron, don't take this as me deciding which way I'm going to go. We still have to see. But I think that's a little bit where I'm leaning. So we'll find out in July if I'm going to do it or not. But yeah, not much else to say. I've already rambled on long enough. Thank you all for watching and supporting me this season. I've really appreciated all the likes, all the comments, all the subs, and everything. Oriolus are, of course, not going away. We are continuing with MPL content for the next 5-6 weeks. I've got my battle versus Johnny GB going up this Wednesday, so if you want to check that out, make sure you stay tuned. Best way to do that, of course, is to drop a like on the video and to drop a sub so you can stay up to date on that content and all my other latest and greatest Pokemon and gaming content. So thank you guys again for watching. Until the next time, I'll see you guys later.